Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Becoming You podcast. Today, I am bringing you an absolutely value-packed episode, and it's all about how to lead yourself when it looks like a goal might not happen. Now, this podcast was inspired by the fact that we've just started our 21-day Becoming Confident Challenge, which, by the way, side note, today is February 21st, if you're listening to this as soon as it's released. And if you're listening to this and you're thinking, man, I meant to register and I missed out, it's not too late. Even though we started February 20th, I'm still keeping registration open until the end of 22nd so that you can get in and catch up on the homework. The first few days, the homework is very, very light and you can double up on some of the homework and get it done. So if you're thinking, I wish I'd signed up for it, you have not missed out. The registration link is in the show notes. Go do it right now. All right. So back on track to the podcast episode. So this was inspired by the fact that I was starting enrollment and I had a really big goal of getting 200 people into this challenge. The last time I ran it, I had 100. And so my stretch goal this time was 200. And going in, I had absolute belief that I would hit this goal. Yes. Was it a stretch? Yes. Was I wondering, would I be able to do it? Of course, I'm human, right? But most of my energy was like behind it, aligned to it. And I had, with about a week to go, I'd already started, asking people to enroll. And I was doing like a 2-week period of launching it. And with about a week to go, I had literally 15 people registered. So this is when the freak out started to happen. And I decided, okay, this is what all my clients go through, right? They start out excited. They're like, yep, I'm going to do the thing that I'm going to do, which is, usually I'm working with Visa. I'm going to overcome like a lot of my unhealthy patterns. I'm going to become more confident. I'm going to become a better parent. Like these are all the goals that they have. And then once we start, they hit road bumps. So they find themselves back in their old patterns. And then they start wondering, am I actually going to be able to do this thing? Maybe I'll never be able to change. So I had the exact same thoughts. For me, my Achilles heel is always my business. And I have some very unhealthy patterns in my businesses that I am not able to break through. So when I started realizing we only have 15 people against a goal of 200 with a week to go, I started thinking about, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. So then I decided, how cool would it be if I was to share the entire journey of how I kept realigning my energy, reframing my mindset, and sharing it publicly with everybody so that no matter if I succeed or win, I take them along for the part of the journey. And that's how this podcast was birthed, because I shared it all on social media, on TikTok and Instagram. And I am putting it all together inside of this podcast episode so you don't have to go watch all those videos. And so step one, I'm going to walk you through what I did every single day in that week to get me to my goal. So spoiler alert, I still have registration open. So I don't know how the story ends yet, but I am so happy to report that I have 135 people inside of the challenge as of right now. I am still going for the 200 goal. And you might be like, Visa, but the timeline you set has already gone. Well, no, that's part of one of the shifts that I have made. I'm going to walk you through it. So as of right now, we're at 135 and I'm still holding the faith for 200 that somehow magically the universe is going to help me hit it with taking action on my part as well. The number one lesson that I took away from this was you've got to hold the faith that it's going to happen no matter what. Holding the faith is so important. And another way to put it is you have got to decide. You have got to decide that it is happening. I've talked about deciding on many, many, many of my episodes before. And it's hard to describe it until you get into the coaching world. Most of us will say, I will try. I hope. I think I can, right? These are all not decisions, because when you say that, there is the energy of, I'm leaving room for this for not happening. When we say, I try, I will try, or I think, or I hope, there's a part of you that takes responsibility to creating a result happening. But then there's also a part of you that's leaving a lot to chance and luck and I don't know if I'm worthy of this or not. And so one of the first things that needs to happen when it comes to a goal or a desire is you've got to decide that it is happening. This takes practice, you guys. It does not happen on day one because we're so used to hoping and trying and wishing that deciding feels so new and alien. And then we start thinking about, do I really have that much power? Can I really decide on something and have it happen? Just because you decide, that does not necessarily mean that you always get what you want, but deciding makes your energy different. What I mean by that is you show up in a different way for the goal. And I'm going to walk you through how I showed up differently because I decided. But you cannot show up differently until you decide. And so part of the decision that I made was we are seeing this through to the end, no matter what. So even if that looks like I only have 15 people with 1 day to go for enrollment, I'm not going to pull back, right? I'm not going to pull back on the amount of effort I'm putting in. I'm not going to pull back on the actions I'm taking. I'm not going to pull back and go into a fetal position and cry and be like, man, I failed, right? That pulling back is what I'm talking about. I really want you to get honest with yourself and think about, the last time it looked like a goal might not happen, did I pull back my energy? Did I decide that it wasn't going to happen and kind of just stop, right? And there's no shame in it, but I do want you to take responsibility and recognize that that's a thing that you do. And we all do it, you guys. This is part of the reason why so many people fail to hit their goals, because they allow their current reality to dictate their emotions and feelings and next steps. So if I had allowed I have 1 week to go and I only have 15 people, that's reality showing up, right? That's the evidence. And we allow what's happened in the past to dictate what we're going to do in the future. So I could have done one of two things. I could have been frantic and gone into scarcity and lack mentality and told all these stories of, oh my God, you never achieve ever, whatever you set your goals to. You're such a failure. You don't know what you're doing. My energy could have gone there, right? But instead, I let go of all those stories and patterns. And I said to myself, I still have 7 days to go. That's a lifetime. I still have 7 days to go. And the reason is you have a hard time holding the faith because all of us want to protect ourselves from disappointment. So the reason we pull back and the reason the energy starts to fade and the motivation and the inspiration and the action all start to fade when it looks like, the evidence is showing up, the reality is telling you that there is no way in heck that this is happening. The reason we do that is you don't want to give it your all and look like a fool. You don't want to be disappointed. You don't want people to be like, I told you it wasn't worth the effort. So you're really trying to protect yourself from that. That is why you pull back. Because who wants to run a race, give it absolutely everything you've got, and not make it to number one or whatever your goal was, right? Who does that? The people who decided that this is mine and they go for it no matter what. Those are the people, the successful people. The people who manage to reach their audacious goals have so many failures along the way. And this is how they do it. They give it their all. So number one is you've got to decide, and that's what I decided. And decision isn't easy when you're doing it on your own. I had a lot of help in helping me redecide every single day. I have a breathwork coach. I have a business coach. So I check in with them and I say, this is how I'm feeling. This is not about ignoring your real feelings and emotions. Of course, I acknowledged my fear. Of course, I acknowledged my insecurities and my disappointment. But I wasn't going to allow them to dictate what I was going to be doing next. That's the difference. It's not about ignoring or suppressing your true emotions. It's about acknowledging it, holding space for it, while also saying, but there's also a part of me that decides to take action and go for this goal and hold the faith in that goal too. Just like you can hold space for your disappointment, you too can hold a space for the desire and dream that it will happen. So one of the things that I did on a daily basis was breath work to work through my fears. It is so important to feel the stories in your body. because there is stuck energy and emotion there that says you're not worthy of your goal, like you don't have what it takes. These are all reoccurring patterns within us. And we consciously, not consciously, but we created them, right? We subconsciously, unconsciously, consciously created them at some point in our lives to protect ourselves against disappointment. Maybe you had a heartbreak. Maybe you gave it your all at a school competition and you unfairly lost. So during that time, maybe you made a contract with yourself and told yourself, like, I will never put myself in that position again. And so now in your adulthood, if you're going for a goal, like that little girl in you remembers how much it hurt to have that prize taken away from you. So when it looks like a goal is not happening, you immediately pull back to protect that part of yourself and say, oh, remember that heartbreak we experienced all that while ago? That was just too much for me to bear, that pain. So we're not going to put ourselves through that again. So you're going to like take the foot off the pedal right now because you only have 7 days to go and it looks like it's not happening. And we don't want to put ourselves through that again. So let's just stop trying right now. This is why breath work is so important, because we can't heal all this stuff on a mindset level. You cannot logically and cognitively talk to that little girl and be like, it's fine. Like that was in the past. Like that's not how it works. We have to bring that emotion, that stuck emotion in your body from all those years ago into the present moment to heal it. And the way you bring that energy into the present moment is to acknowledge it and feel it through what I use breath work, right? Through breath work. So I did a lot of breath work. And one of the things that I got as a download from the breath work was, like, why don't you reach out to people on your social media network and ask them to share this challenge with you? And it was just like a millisecond thought that came through as I was breathing through other things. And my cognitive mind made a note of it. And as soon as I came out of the breath work, I took immediate action. I reached out to about 4 or 5 people that I trusted in my social network that I knew would resonate with this challenge. And their audience was aligned to my audience, but there was no competition. And I just asked them, like, hey, I'm doing this. I would love your help. If it feels aligned to you, can you please share it with your audience? And I left it at that. I didn't put any pressure on them. And of course I said, if it doesn't feel good, like, don't worry about it, right? And I let it go. But what I did on my part was take action from the download that I received and let go of the attachment. And I didn't I wasn't like, if they share, then I'll hit my goal. If they don't share, I'm not going to hit my goal. Like that's what I mean by attachment, right? The detachment comes from the universe gave me a nudge. I did my part. Now I trust the universe and the people that I've asked to help me to do their part. If they choose to help, wonderful. If they don't, I'm still going to meet my goal anyway, right? That is what I mean by detachment. Okay. Number 2, the thing that I did, again, through breath work and through my coaching, through the coaching I received, was to focus on the why. Most of us, when we set a goal, yes, it's about us. We want to hit the goal because it's going to do something for us to benefit our lives. But we forget the bigger picture, right? Why do we want our lives to be better? Like, why do you want to be a better parent? Yes, being a better parent helps you. But ultimately, you want to be a better parent because you want to build a better relationship with your kids, right? Why do you want that? Why do you want to build a better relationship with your kids? Because you want to feel connected to them. You want to create emotionally resilient kids. You want to build confidence in them, right? Well, why do you want to do that? Like, keep going deeper, right? So if you're thinking about, let's say your goal is to become a better parent, right? But then you're scared about investing in a parent coach. It's a lot of money and you feel like really selfish. It's like, right? The reason it feels so hard to invest is because you're making it all about you. You're saying, I'm selfish. I should already know how to do this and be a good parent. And investing in it, like, that's shameful that I already don't know this. You're making it all about you. What you've lost sight of is the fact that when you invest in a parent coach, they are going to teach you a lifetime of skills to connect deeper with your children to build their confidence. So ultimately, you're saying yes to the parent coach, not for you, but for you and your kids. And what happens when you raise kids that are emotionally resilient, mature, stable, they feel safe, they're risk takers, they're confident, they know they're resilient, they're persistent, right? Like all the things that we want to instill. When you become a great parent, you then are able to create that kind of an environment for them to thrive. And when they thrive and become safe adults, they go off and follow their dreams and they contribute so much more to the world because they had an incredible parent to set them up for success, right? And so it ultimately benefits the world and all the lives that your children are going to touch. That's the bigger why on investing in a parent coach. When you start to connect to the bigger why, it becomes so much easier to keep driving towards your goals. So what I did, I asked myself, why am I doing this in the first place? Yes, the 200 is an ego thing. It feels really good to be like, I hit 200, like I had 200 people enroll, and it builds evidence that my business is growing or whatever, right? Like that's what I'm using as evidence to help me feel good. But the reason, the bigger why of why I'm doing this is because I want to help women feel really good in who they are and the life that they are living. That's what the Becoming Confident Challenge is about. I want them to feel really freaking good about who they are. And so what does it matter if I do that for 17 people or if I do that for 200 people? Right? This is where the ego gets in. And this is where it gets really confusing. We make it all about ourselves. And then we give up when we make it all about ourselves. So if you have a goal right now, I want you to focus on the bigger why, beyond you, beyond your family, beyond your community. And this can be really difficult because maybe you've never thought about your goals in this way. But what happens when you invest in a trainer and you become fitter, right? Maybe you lose weight. Like that makes you feel more powerful and strong and healthy. So then what happens to your work? What happens to your relationships? What happens to your friendships? How do you show up in the world? Like, does that then build your confidence? And then do you show up more confidently at work? And then what happens when you show up more confidently at work? Like, what type of impact do you make to your clients and your customers and your colleagues, right? Every single thing that you do for yourself, a goal, there's always a bigger why. It exists. You just have to spend the time figuring out what that why is. So I did that. I spent time figuring out what my bigger why is. And that I told you, like I said, like what happens if I change one woman's life and help her realize how incredible she is? And then that shifts her confidence. What other ripple effects does she have? And I have plenty of evidence in my life from 6 years of doing coaching that what I think is a small change in their life has actually led to incredible ripple effect changes in their entire life. And so number 3, I just want to give you guys like an update on what happened. So I had about 5 days to go and I was now at 30 people. So I'd gone from about 17, I think when I started, or 15. I was now about at 30 with 5 days to go. So still nowhere near that 200 goal. And one of the guidance that I received from my coaches was, and what I recognized through one of my breathwork sessions was, what is my ability to receive, right? And what I mean by that is oftentimes we're working towards our desires and we haven't thought about what happens if that thing that I'm working towards arrives and lands in my lap right now. Do I have what it takes to handle all of it? So let me give you an example. Oftentimes I keep going back to losing weight. Let me use something else. Let's say it's money, right? Like you're really struggling for money or you're strapped for money. And you keep praying to like win the lottery or get some, like you just keep wishing the universe would somehow, some way just give you the money magically, right? If that were to happen today, like let's say you won the lottery, do you have the capacity to receive, hold, and manage? Let's say you won $1 million. Can you do that right now? Like, I really want you to think about it. If $1 million would have arrived and land in your lap right now, do you have the ability to receive it, keep it, manage it, and feel safe with it? That's the key. Do you have the ability to feel safe with it? Most people don't. On a very conscious surface level, we're all like, yeah, money will solve all problems. But when you dig deeper and, if somebody were to hand you $1 million, there's a lot of stuff that's going to come up. One, you're probably going to be scared to have that much money. You're going to start wondering, oh my God, who's going to come out of the woodwork to ask me for more money? And how do I want to say no? Do I want to say yes? Like I want to say no, but what are they going to think of me? Am I a selfish person? Am I a greedy person? Who's going to try scamming me? Like, I don't want to waste all that money. I would feel terrible if I spent it all. right? All of this stuff comes up. If you have not healed your relationship with money, there is no way you're going to feel ready to receive $1 million. And this is the reason why you don't have $1 million in your account right now. Because you don't have the capacity to receive. It doesn't mean that you'll never have it. It means you need to do the work of healing whatever shame, unworthiness, and the blocks and the resistance that are in the way of you receiving that much influx of money in your life right now. This is part of the reason the universe doesn't give us everything we want all at once, because we have to grow into the person we need to be to receive all the stuff that we want. So I did a breathwork sessions on expanding my capacity to receive 200 people into this container. And it felt really good to work through the fears and the shadows, right? Like, what happens if 200 people come in and none of them receive a transformation? That's one of my fears that I had to breathe through. And again, realize that that was a part of the wounded part of me that had this pattern of like, you don't know what you're doing. You're not very good at what you do. None of this stuff is true. None of this stuff is true. Like I said, I have so much evidence to prove that the work I do works. In fact, I have so much evidence from the last round I ran of people whose score was at like a 7, went up to like a 34. Somebody's whose score was like a 27 and went up to like a 44, right? So I have so much evidence. And yet there are these wounded parts of us that replay these patterns over and over and over. So I did the breathwork session and I did some journaling on like, how ready am I to receive this with ease? Okay. And then with 3 days to go, I was at 37 people. And one of the things, I had a one-on-one coaching call with my client, and she put me on the spot and she said, okay, it looks like for all intents and purposes, this is not happening. And she goes, how can we work with your brain and your ego to figure out how can this be happening for you? And that was such a mind-blowing question to me, because all of us tend to focus on what's not working. When something's not going our way, that's the immediate thing we go on is, oh my God, why is this happening to me? I've done everything I can. What am I doing wrong? Like I have missed something. There's something that I don't know. I'm not meant to have this. We go into that negative spiral, and that again gets you out of alignment. Your energy is way off. It's not, the universe is not thinking, oh, let me send her more of what, like she wants to reach her goal. No, the universe is like, oh, she's in a lack and scarcity, and that's more of what you're going to attract. And you're focused on the negative. And when you focus on the negative, you're not focused on solutions. You're focused on solving a problem that's unsolvable, which is it's not working. So in order to shift into the state of a solution state, you got to ask yourself, if I believe that this was happening for me, what would I be doing right now? What would I be focusing on? So I was already like, it was great that she asked that question, but I started focusing, and I had already been doing things with that mindset. So one of the things that I did do that came out of this entire thing was to be more vulnerable than I've ever been on social media, because I was working through these fears in real time with my social media audience and sharing my takeaways. It held me accountable to do the internal work. And I was ready to share my success or my failure with the audience. Like I told them up front, this is a whole new level of vulnerability. I'm going to share with you guys what the end results are. And part of confidence comes from sharing your failures with people and learning to accept yourself, right? That took me to a whole new level. So I had some amazing content come out of this. And my TikTok has been growing as a result of showing up so vulnerably. People are really resonating with it. And the beautiful thing that happened was all those messages that I'd sent out like 5 days ago, asking people to share my challenge on their Instagram profile. One person came through right away, not right away, after about 3 days after I sent it. And she said, okay, send me what you got. I'll share it on my stories. And as a result of that, 70 people signed up thanks to her. Like she did such an incredible thing for me. And I'm so grateful, but I'm also grateful for the fact that the download came through and I was inspired to take that action, because that is not something that I have done in the past of asking people to help me out. That's a wounded part of me that goes, you got to do this on your own. Like, don't ask people. They're going to feel obligated or they're not going to want to do it. Right. So I overcame that fear thanks to breathworks, and I took action, and this person came through for me, and the universe like co-created this beautiful result, right? So now I was at 100 people. But going back to point number 4 is ask yourself the question, how is this happening for me? How can this be the best thing to happen for me right now? Like these setbacks, these challenges, things not going well. How can this be happening for you? How can this be growing you into the person you need to become? And train your brain to focus away from the negative and start looking at solvable problems. My business coach always says, what is a solvable problem here? Solvable problem is there's only 37 people in this group. How can we make this the best experience for them? So you didn't hit 200 people. Does that mean you won't hit your revenue goals for the month? Is there a possibility that you can still hit your revenue goals for the month, despite the fact that you didn't hit your challenge goal? Absolutely. Yes, there is a chance, right? So start looking at what are the problems that are here that I can actually solve instead of feeling disempowered by focusing on problems that are in the past or I cannot solve, which is I can't control 200 people signing up, but I can control the actions that I take, right? So one of the things that I kept doing was kept showing up on social media and kept sharing, despite my fear of, oh my God, you sound like a broken record. Like people are going to get so tired of it. I kept sending daily emails to my list. I kept asking people to invite more people into the challenge. I kept showing up. And I asked myself, if this goal was already a reality, what are the action steps that I would be taking? Like if I already know in some alternate universe that 200 people have already signed up, what are the actions I would have taken in that alternate universe to get this to happen, right? And those might not be any original creative ideas that I've never done before. It just might be doing more of the thing that I'm already doing, right? But not putting shame and pressure on myself, but taking it from an inspired place, which is I'm so grateful for the 37 people that have already signed up. I can't wait to see how many more are going to come. And I'm taking action to welcome more of them in, right? That is a positive energy aligned place. A scarcity energy misaligned place would be like, crap, I've got to get more people in. Like, I don't know how I'm going to do this without it. Like I'm terrible at what I do, and taking place from that action to fill the void and the fear that you don't want to feel, which is I'm not successful, right? That's the difference between your energy being aligned and your energy not being aligned. All right. So in step number 5, with 2 days to go, we hit 100 people. Like I already shared, it's because I got that nudge from the breathwork session. People started coming through. So I'm recording this with not very much long to go. Yesterday, meaning it was a Sunday yesterday. And I was really bold and I made an Instagram post and I tagged 2 women that I reached out to on Instagram who have huge followings, who said they would share, but they hadn't shared yet. And I know that when people say yes, they mean really, really well, but then they forget. Life gets in the way. Everybody has their own stuff going on. So I tagged them in the post in the hopes that they were like, oh yeah, I meant to share Visa's thing. I completely forgot. I'm so glad she made this so easy for me. And 2 of them did. Like, because I tagged them, they shared it right away and I made life easy for them. It's not that they didn't want to share. It's just life got busy and they forgot. And I had to do the work of showing up in front of them, be like, hey, you promised me that you do this. Like, can you please share? Making it really easy. So we always assume that people don't want to help us. We assume that we're a burden. We assume that we're problematic. And that's why we make ourselves small, because we don't want to bother people. And we pull back our energy and we're like, oh, well, she said she'd help, but she didn't. So I guess I want to ask again because I don't want to bother her, because she would have clearly shared if she wanted to. No, she did want to share. She just forgot. I had to do the work of showing up for myself and making it really easy for them. And I created a lot of internal safety within myself, again, through breath work. What I mean by that is I knew that I would not be shaming myself if I didn't meet this goal. I wasn't going to make it a catastrophe. I wasn't going to write any stories about how terrible I am and how I'm not meant to do this business. I was not going to build any stories that were not serving me. We are done with building negative stories that hurt us, right? And again, that requires internal work. It requires internal healing. It requires you to bring what stuff happened in the past, wounding from the past into the present and feeling them through. So I went to my breathwork coach and I did a 30-40 minute breath session through a video that she had done to feel these fears, these deep, deep, deep fears of like, you will never, ever get what you desire, right? That's an underlying fear I have. Like, you're just not worthy. No matter how hard you try, you'll never get what you want. I had to breathe through all of that. And I'm still not like at the bottom. It's not completely healed, but I keep excavating and I keep releasing. I keep excavating and I keep releasing. And so it brings me to the last step, right? Which was, now I have about 2 days to go until enrollment closes. And I'm still not pulling back my energy. I am still holding my faith for the 200. There's still plenty of time to get another 70 people in the next 2 days. And the last thing that I want you to take away is that growth isn't incremental. That's something I've come to realize through this challenge. What I mean by that is, let's say you want to lose 50 pounds and you have a 6-month goal to do it, right? Or a year goal, whatever. So it's easy for the brain to go, well, that's about, I don't know, let's say 60 pounds over 6 months, okay? Because the math is easier. That's about 10 pounds on average, right? And in month 1, if you don't lose 10 pounds, now you're like, oh my God, how am I going to lose 55 pounds in 6 months? So we put the pressure on ourselves against timeline and numbers, and we expect things to be incremental. If I had gone with that plan, that would have meant that I had, 17 people to begin with. Then it went to like 30, then it went to like 37, and then it jumped to 100, right? If I had stuck to this idea of like things are only incremental, I would have absolutely bought into the belief that with the number of days left to go and the number of people I need to enroll, the math just did not work out, right? But the math did work out. I now have 135 people. How did that happen? I quantum leap, right? So time means nothing when it comes to achieving your goals. Just because it hasn't happened for 10 years does not mean that it won't come true in this next 6 months, right? And again, just because it took you 2 years to do something doesn't mean it's going to take you another 2 years to do it, right? Time has no significance when it comes to reaching your goals and your desires, and you need to understand this. It's so important that you understand this, because we allow time to dictate our reality and our thoughts, and we think, well, if it hasn't happened by now, it'll probably never happen. Or I failed the last 5 times, so what's going to tell, there's no proof that it's going to happen the 6th time I try it. We allow past evidence being numbers, hard numbers, to determine what we think our future is going to look like. And it's that mentality that then repeats the same result in the future. It's your thoughts that are creating it. It's your mindset that's creating it. It's your fears that are creating it. It's not the actual reality. Your coding says that because it hasn't happened yet, it won't happen again. And therefore, you can only create a reality that you deeply believe. You cannot create a reality that's a mismatch. Your coding creates the reality. If you want to change your reality, you've got to change the coding. And the way you change the coding is by healing emotional trauma, bringing the past wounding to the present moment so you can feel it and release it. You have got to go excavating and exploring your inner world and release all of this garbage that you insist on holding on to. So that is my big TED talk for today. I will give you guys an update next week on where we ended at against the 200 number. But as of right now, we're at 135. And I continue working through other stuff that's come up. Yes, I'm celebrating. Yes, I'm still holding the faith for the 200. But now there are new fears that crop up now that this challenge started. And I won't even go into what that is right now. But this is the work, you guys. This is the work. It might sound exhausting to you listening from the other end, but I've been doing this for 6 years. It is not exhausting because it becomes such a daily practice of cleaning your inner world, and it becomes easier and easier and faster. And you start compounding your results and you start to realize, man, the way I see life is so different to who I was 6 years ago. You feel lighter, you feel freer, you feel stronger within who you are, you feel safer within who you are. And life just becomes so incredible. Life doesn't become less challenging. It feels less challenging, the position I'm in, because I have the tools and I am mentally stronger. So life feels easier no matter what it throws at me. But the number of challenges I still face in my life is exactly the same as it was probably 6 years ago. But it doesn't feel that way because who I am has changed. The way I view my life has changed. The way I view myself has changed. And therefore, some of the challenges that would have felt insurmountable now is like a sneeze to me, right? And there are still some things that I'm working through. But this is the beauty of learning how to live life to the fullest. All right. I love you guys so much. Remember to enroll for the challenge if you haven't already done so. It's not too late if you're listening to this before February 22nd of 2023. Take care, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.